Holiday Thriver, where we're doing 30 days of live stream for how to really thrive during the holidays. And today we are in day 6. So welcome if you're just joining. Just so you know, if there's just something that is heavy on your heart, you can always invite somebody who might be struggling right now, because this is all about how to thrive during the holidays. So this whole series, live streams, is all about thriving during the holidays. Each day we're covering a different topic. Today is the discernment between belief versus truth, and how to really reprogram yourself into really thriving this holiday season. So go ahead and share this with friends if you know somebody that could really benefit from thriving during the holidays. Maybe they're in a little funk or they're in a sad space. We're not going to be talking about sadness. We're like getting you guys up and running. And also, if you have comments during the topic, what I want you to do is, if I say something that hits you in the heart, or you're like, whoa, kind of gets me to think a little bit differently, put that quote below so people that are coming in later on can scroll and see a topic that they might have missed out on. Another thing too is, if you have any comments, if you want to hop on the screen with me, just let me know. This is for you guys. This is for you guys. And so today we are going to be talking about something that it took me many, many years to understand. I thought that my life circumstances had to be something that happened forever. I thought that just because it happened to me, and I think a lot of people feel like this, that it is just going to be my life forever and there's nothing I can do about it. And we talked about a few sessions ago the difference between victim consciousness, which was there's nothing I can do about it, these are my circumstances, like feeling miserable about yourself, feeling really depressed about your life, or just feeling upset about what's going on, maybe a little bit in a funk. And the victor consciousness is, you know what? I don't know how this happened to me. I don't know how I created this, but I know that if I created this, I can create something else. And just taking ownership of how you feel, how you look, how you want to show up in your life, and how you want to live your life, that is on us. And that's really the biggest thing about reclaiming our personal power, transitioning our obstacles into opportunities, and transitioning our pain into our power. And these are really important concepts, because what you're going through or what your past circumstances were or are do not have to be projected into where you're going in your life. So today, that's really about, in this ebook, which a few of you were asking me about, I wrote this. And if you are interested, just send me a message. We're going to be announcing something on Monday, because I realize you guys really love it and you want it. Today's topic is belief versus truth, right? Belief versus truth. And something for a lot of people that don't understand, and it took me a while to understand this as well, is that belief is experiences that happen over and over and over again. Belief is an experience or multiple experiences that happen over and over and over again. And truth, because a lot of times people think like, oh, this is true for me. Truth is something that is felt in your heart. Beliefs are in your mind. That's why it's so important. In yoga, they teach us to one of the most powerful poses is a child pose. And if you know what child pose is, you can just Google it. But it's like where you go into that downward space and you drop your head below your heart. Because the truth is, or the ideal is, we train our mind to become obedient to our heart. And there's a lot of science out there in epigenetics, which is the power of reprogramming our belief system. I'm just going to use some science words because some people, it's like the fluffy stuff. You need to hear the science to bridge the gap. There's something called heart math. And there's a movie out there called The Power of the Heart. And how we radiate our energy, how we show up, right? Because a few sessions ago, I interviewed my friend Renee on body language, and he was saying that only 7% of words that we speak, so me speaking these words, is what is going to get through to people. But the frequency that I speak them in, the energy that I speak them in, it's felt. So when I work with people, they're like, wow, she's speaking truth, or else I'm not speaking. And that, getting back to yoga, we train our mind to become obedient to our heart. And there's a power in our heart because our heart is where truth resides. So the more open we get into our heart, and it might sound weird, especially for you guys. I know, because I work with a lot of exec guys. But the moment that you allow yourself to become vulnerable, because there's so much strength in our vulnerability. You know, we're humans, we all have a heart. So whether you're weird about it or not, like it's a heart. We all have one. Without a heart, you don't exist. So the power behind the heart is that is where our truth resides. So your life purpose, your passion, your interests, your life path doesn't live in here. It lives in here. So when we block off our heart, we're then reliant on programming. And when I was at an event last night, there's a few events that I have to stop into this weekend. Every single thing we do in our day, the conversations we're having, so you being here on this live is programming. Where you position yourself, where you spend your time, the white noise that you have in the background of music, the television, the messages you see around things. Like I always have like little sticky notes to remind me of what I'm trying to program myself with, because we want to make sure that what we're programming our mind is supportive to what we're trying to accomplish in our life, our business, our relationships, our bank account, all those things, all these amazing things in this life wheel, right? So we have our overly full life box, and in our overly full life box, we have multiple categories of different things. And yes, they intertwine and they can work together ideally. But it's simpler when we're doing our life wheel workshop, which is going to happen in December. They intertwine, but they can also be subcategorized. And we have to understand how fulfilling is each one. I create this. I create my family, I create my relationships, I create the business, and this comes back to the beginning of what I was saying about claiming ownership and taking personal responsibility. Today's topic, for those of you hopping on, is the difference between belief versus truth, and how truth resides in here, belief resides in here. And it's all about learning to get on your own team and also opening up and becoming more in touch with their heart. So this is where we transition that pain into power, and understanding that there's so much strength in our vulnerability, because that's what really liberates and frees us on a cellular level. Cellular, if you want to get fancy with it, I mentioned a few of you that just hopped on, is the epigenetics, creating new neuroplasticity, all of this, we can feel things. But the moment that we shut down our heart, we block our heart, because life circumstances, everybody that's blocked their heart, and I used to be so emotionally unavailable for so long, I'll be the first to say, I've done a lot of work to be more emotionally available so I can manage my emotions, which then leads to emotional intelligence. If you're not emotionally available, there's no way you're going to even know, hey, something's up, because our emotions are something that God has given us in order to, God, spirit, universe, whatever you believe in. Energy, I like to stick with the word energy. It's a gift. And if we understand how to use it as leverage of information, that this is information that I'm off course because it doesn't feel good, or this is painful and it hurts my heart. But you have to understand the heart is a muscle and it will never break. It might feel like it because we got all these feelings and it's so intense, but the heart never breaks. It's a muscle. And if you understand muscles tear. And when they tear, they repair. And they repair a lot stronger. And that's how people can build beautiful aesthetic bodies and get tight and toned. And all of that has to do with tearing muscle fibers in order to repair them. But nothing can be repaired if we don't pay attention to them and use our pain as information and course correct. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because it absolutely has to do with how we live our lives. And if we're taking our past stuff into our present, or whatever might have happened, and you already anticipating how your year is going to be how the end of the year is going to be. So these last 7 weeks, how are we going to close out? Because they impact how we're starting our 2023. If you look at that, if you're in business and stuff like that. And a lot of these emotions can really handicap us. They can really create forms of mental paralysis, wondering why you're tired all the time. A lot of it is your emotions. Maybe you haven't processed the anger. Maybe you haven't processed the pain. Maybe you haven't processed whatever it is that you need to process, and you keep trying to carry it and shut it down and shut it up. But those things drain you. They take away your power. And I have not ever come across somebody who didn't want to step into their full power, into their full potential, into living life. My new favorite word is vivaciously. Living life vivaciously. Because even if you say the word full potential, there's still a gap that exists within it. That means I'm not there yet. And there's never a there. But if you say, okay, that's still like the chasing energy. But if you're like, you know what, I'm going to live it, be it, show up as it now, every single day, practice these new personality traits, this new characteristic. And I'm going to learn, almost like I'm an actor and actress, to step into this version of myself. And even though it might not feel real, because this is where we're getting the program on place with our heart center, which is where only you know when it's your next time to up level. Only you know when it's time for your growth, because the things around you will no longer satisfy you. The conversations that you're having will no longer satisfy you. And humans are designed to grow and expand. We're not designed to stay the same. You're not designed to go back and live your high school years. They're over. I mean, unless you're still in high school, then live vivaciously, but responsibly at the same time. You have to accept the space you're in order to make progress and change your circumstances. Look at your obstacles as your opportunities and your pain and turn it into your power. And a lot of that has to do with really reclaiming how you're going and the decisions you're going to make from today on as far as moving forward. So we're talking about belief versus truth. I'm reading in my book here. The truth is, it doesn't matter who I used to be. And this isn't my quote. The truth is, it doesn't matter who I used to be. It's all about who I have become or who you're practicing stepping into. So getting these programming in alignment to what you know you're supposed to do in your life. Like maybe if you're not happy with the path you've chosen for your end target, we talked about the other day, there's your end target and there's multiple paths to getting there. And just because you know somebody that got there on a certain path and it doesn't resonate with you doesn't mean you have to go on that same path as them. But it also isn't fair that you change your target. There are so many people that have achieved massive success, whatever you are defining as success, which was a big conversation I was having with a lot of people, in different ways, in different avenues, have still reached similar targets. And we want to make sure, in order to feel fulfillment and happiness and our peace, and that our external success aligns with our internal success and our core values. And what I've realized working with a lot of people that have reached heightened levels of success on the external, it's not really considered success because they've just built these beautiful prisons for themselves. So the money's there, the car's there, the significant other's there, all these things, but why do they still feel the same way about themselves? Empty, unfulfilled, anxious, doubting themselves, all these things. It's because there was never an establishment of what success, how they define success. How do I define success? And it's not saying like you have to push out the external success. I believe we can have it all, but we have to make sure that that internal, which is an alignment to our truth, only you know what your truth is going to be, because it's going to hit you in the heart. You're going to feel it. And even though it's not going to make sense in the mind, that's why what I was saying from the beginning, training our mind to be obedient to our heart, but programming it in a way that supports what your purpose, your passion, and what you're trying to achieve in this season of your life. I don't want you guys to think about the forever, because it becomes too overwhelming, and sometimes you're never going to know, you're never going to see that clear vision of what you've built. It's always going to be, what is that next clear step? And you can ask, what is my next clear step? And maybe it's to start saying no when you mean it. Maybe it's to start setting some healthy boundaries on where you're sharing your time and your energy, because you have to collect yourself and build a new version of yourself that are going to support what you know is heart-centered for you, because this is where your truth resides. So it's time we start really dealing with our stuff and facing our stuff, because it's never going to go away. I'm just telling you this right now. It's always going to build up. So the moment that you take time and you learn to be okay sitting with yourself, and you learn healthy tools to process whatever it is that you're experiencing of the undesired, you can move out of it so much faster. That is healthy speed. There are no shortcuts to this. You have to go through it. The only way out is through. I wish I could tell you otherwise, but the moment you decide to take personal responsibility for how you feel, for how you look, for what you're doing in your life and how you want to show up, and being able to say, you know what, I'm really proud of the person that I am. I'm really proud of the person that I've become. I really admire the person that I've become. If you were looking back at yourself as a child, would that child look up to you? So if you could reflect back, me at like 7 years old, me at 10 years old, me at 13 years old, am I somebody that I would respect? Am I somebody that would go back and be like, wow, I aspire to be just like her or him? For a long time, I would say no. And today, 100%, 100%. And there's a lot of work behind the work. And this is really about just getting honest with ourselves. You don't have to tell anybody your stuff. You don't have to go and blast it to the world, but you owe it to you to at least be honest. And if you are numbing yourself, or if you're somebody who's numbed yourself and you haven't dealt with it because the pain was too intense, like, bring on a coach. Put yourself in a position where, in an environment where you will be successful versus triggered. And maybe just start with being honest on what are the things that pull you and disconnect you from who you want to be. Maybe it's hanging around certain people and you don't like the way that you act around them. So why are you going to put yourself in a position where you're not strong enough, and you don't feel like you have enough confidence or strength to be able to speak your truth and to have a voice, or to, act or behave in ways that you respect? And maybe I would say start off with writing all the things that you would like to shift and change, all the things that you're not happy about. For last year, I worked really hard on it in order for others to feel more comfortable around me, because I understand, like, I have a strong energy, and I've worked really hard towards it. I would put myself down and I would belittle myself, which is a form of betrayal, in order for others to not feel intimidated or uncomfortable. And that did nothing but break me down. And that did nothing for anybody to want to rise up. And when I realized, even teaching this work and doing it, I'm always a student to it. And you're never gonna, sometimes you're blinded to the things. Sometimes you're blinded to your shadow traits until maybe somebody points something out, or for me, I'm really big on coaching. So I hired a coach, and I realized, like, that's not okay. And I have to learn to get on my own winning team. And I'm going to promise myself, I'm not going to put myself down. I'm not going to talk shiznit about myself. I'm not going to, even share certain things to certain people that I don't fully trust, because they're not deserving of that, as I'm working on strengthening the way that I speak to myself, the way that I carry myself, the way that because I'm in the space of becoming. And the becoming we talked about the other day has also a lot to do with practice. and giving yourself permission, like, yeah, maybe you're not going to be okay with setting healthy boundaries. You're not going to be really good at setting healthy boundaries, but today gave you the opportunity. Today you face an obstacle where you didn't feel good about something and you spoke up about it. And maybe it was a way where you didn't come out amazing, but you did stand up for yourself and you did set a boundary, and you have to look at that as a win. And then as taking that obstacle as an opportunity to practice setting healthy boundaries, for teaching people how to speak to you, for teaching people how to treat you. And it really just comes down to that. Every day is practice. But in order to practice, you also have to be aware of certain traits that don't serve you anymore for where you're going in your life. You're going with your business, where you're going in your life, and just isn't going to resonate with you because it's just not going to feel good. And that has a lot to do with truth. So it doesn't matter who I used to be. A lot of times during the holidays, you're meeting people you haven't seen in years, and they're trying to remind you of maybe some mess you had to clean up, that you learned the message. So we find our message in our mess, and you had to clean up, and that's not your story anymore. And they're trying to remind you of who you were when maybe you weren't proud of yourself. And you had to forgive yourself for those decisions that you made, because you made them out of maybe fear or trying to fit in, or whatever the reason you made it. But you made it, and you don't have to carry it with you anymore. So when they come at you, you just reintroduce yourself. Hey, I know you keep bringing up that stuff. Yeah, we all have past messes and this and that, but that's not me anymore. So I don't know why you're living in the past, or however way you want to say. Like, let me reintroduce myself. This is who I am. This is what I do. Da, 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 da. And sometimes you don't even have to go there. Like, hey, sorry you kind of live in that world, depending on how they react, but let me reintroduce myself to you. This is who I am today. This is what I stand for. This is where I'm going. Not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's part of your journey. And, when we talk a lot about, when I work with people, the growth space, and it took me a while to understand this too, is as you're growing and expanding and evolving, and you've separated yourself from people because you're doing your work. And when you do your work, I know for me personally, I need to eliminate as many distractions as possible, because I have to, it's a lot of work, and I have to be able to build one of the most important relationships that I'll ever have in my life. And I'm saying this for you too, is a relationship with yourself. Building a really strong relationship with yourself. Oh, I don't know why I'm mute the whole time. Sorry, you guys. I have it on Instagram though, so that'll post over. Sorry. But one of the most powerful relationships you can ever establish is a relationship with your superconscious self, with your higher self. We all have multiple versions of ourselves, and every single day we have the opportunity to make the decisions that are in alignment from our past self, of what's known because of all the experience we've had, or from our future self. And this sometimes can be harder because we haven't had those experiences yet, and we don't feel like we're doing it right, or we have impatience with ourselves. But if you think that, as we talked about yesterday, it's like a workout, it's a muscle. Every single day you have the opportunity of practicing, getting more comfortable stepping into that role. So when a lot of people talk about the imposter syndrome, I've realized it's a workout. Just like when you start taking care of your body, you'll understand the process of it. It's really uncomfortable. It's really hard. It doesn't always feel good. It's not always pleasant, but it's that consistency, and that's that commitment, and it's the discipline to follow through. And eventually you're like, this is who I am. And to be able to convince yourself of what you're stepping into and what you're trying to, like, aligning to your next level upgrade of what your truth is, and getting you and your programming all in alignment to support your truth, that is such a win. And every single day to give yourself credit for trying and for showing up and every day practicing, taking those obstacles and turning them as opportunities to really step into the new, to really feel like you're thriving. And thriving is about forward movement. It's about making progress in the direction of where you're trying to aim. And it's okay if you don't know where to aim, because that's what a lot of this work is about. But the most important thing you can do today is, are my beliefs in alignment with my truth? Are my programming, the programming in my mind, because the beliefs are stemming from here, when something's repeated over and over and over and over and over again, eventually comes your truth. But truth and belief aren't in alignment. That's why you might hear something and it sounds amazing, but it doesn't hit you in the heart. When something hits you in the heart, that's truth. Because truth cannot be recognized, or truth, I'm sorry, rewind. Truth cannot be learned, it can only be recognized. Truth cannot be learned, it can only be recognized. So it's so important that we get our programming in alignment to what we recognize as truth. And truth might be different for you as it is for me, because guess where truth resides? It resides in our hearts. And you have your own unique heart that has your unique path, that has your unique interests, that has your unique hobbies inside. And then all life is about a bunch of experiences, picking and choosing of, I want more of this, it's in alignment to me. I want more of this, it's in alignment to me. I don't want any more of that because that is not in alignment to me and where I'm going and how I want to show up mentally, physically, emotionally, and even in my energy, even in my frequency. So it's so important to just every day audit. I'm auditing every single day. How do I feel when I leave this situation? Even though I don't want to do it, it's so important to go through the movements, go through the process. I did a yoga class. I shared it in my stories the other day. And one of my favorite instructors, Allegra, she was saying, when you go through the emotion will go through you. When you go through the emotion will go through you. So regardless of you feel like doing something, when you're establishing habits and behaviors that support your next level upgrade, your thriving, your progress, and you don't want to show up for them, that's what we're talking about, the battle between our past and our future. Which one is going to win? The one that you feed the most, the one that you show up for, that builds momentum, that builds consistency. A lot of successful people, depending on what you consider success, I consider success aligning the external with the internal, but always coming back to core values as you allow time to catch up to the external, because it's only a matter of time where time will catch up to the creation of what you've been working on. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's like I always go back to the body, because the body is easier to see, touch, feel. Full transformation can take anywhere. One of my coaches works with a lot of people that win in their competitions in bodybuilding. I don't want to bodybuild, but I do have a background in that. And he trains his athletes, if they're already in physical good peak condition, 3 months, 6 months, a year. And that's if you're like consistent training 6 days a week. So what makes you think if you're trying to build a business, you're going to have days you're not going to want to show up, you show up anyway. You're going to have days that you don't want, but you trust. And this whole thing too is about self-trust. And knowing that a lot of self-doubt takes up and eats at our energy, and it suffocates us and it drains us, and those negative emotions, the faster you can learn to get on your own team and transition when you start to put yourself down into like building yourself up. No, actually, I'm really proud of myself. I showed up today. Even though I felt maybe a little bit slower today, or I'm kind of dragging my feet, I showed up anyway. When you move through the emotion will move through you. Eventually, this too shall pass. Nothing is permanent. Everything's temporary. Right now, I'm in a season. How do I want to go through this season? So beliefs are statements that we are conditioned to think are our truths, because they're experiences we keep having over and over and over again. So I'm like, oh, I guess this is just fate. Like, no, you created it. You're doing the same thing. You're going to have more experiences of it. You keep projecting or anticipate how it's going to happen, and it's going to keep happening. they show up and often prove themselves to be facts. So truth is always recognized by the heart. Truth is always recognized. It can never be learned. And it's a mind that gets confused because of the programming, because our programming isn't in working with our truth. That's why we're having issues with mental health stuff. It's very simple. It's not easy. Things are overcomplicated because when you're going through something, you go to the professionals and what do? Feeling bad? Have a pill. Oh, you had a bad day. Let's go out to eat and like abuse our body. Oh, let's have a drink. Let's have this. Like, you need to sit with that. You need to process that. You need to journal it out. You need to do some EFT work, some tapping, like some neuro NLP, like whatever you got to do, because that is information, and that information can be your greatest asset when you learn to befriend it. It's not scary. It's just that a lot of people don't have the tools. And the only tools you actually, let me reframe that. A lot of people have tools. The tools aren't, they're working against us versus for us. Tools can be when you feel triggered. So identifying your triggered emotions. I did a webinar on this. Identify your trigger emotions, and then the way that you handle them, because most of the time we're playing for the short game, the instant gratification. When I feel this discomfort, this disease, I then will, overeat, or I'll drink, or I'll engage, call the wrong person, or I'm this or I'm that. And then that leads to a temporary instant gratification that leads to you still feeling negative and unfulfilled and sad and lonely and even deeper down a hole of unfulfillment. Versus playing for the long game is triggered emotions. I'm feeling triggered. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling, like life is against me. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that. And then changing the tools that you're using. So taking those tools, dumping them out, putting new tools in. And I know you guys are messaging about weed too, weed and vaping and all those things. They do slow you down. And that is part of the unhealthy tools that are only blocking your blessings and keeping you more of a liability of operating at higher levels. So when you take those tools that aren't serving you and you dump them out and you replace them with new tools, it's not always going to be pleasurable, because you actually got to process through the pain when you're feeling intense emotions and you sit with them, or you're journaling them out and you're having to allow them to get brought up. It's like a fever. It has to be risen in order to release, because the only way out is through. This is where transitioning our pain to power and understanding the outcome is always going to be desired. The other outcome for the short game is never going to be desired. So when you identify your triggered emotions and when you're getting triggered or what's happening, this is a big season of triggers. That's why we're doing these 30-day lives, to support you and give you a better understanding of yourself and how the brain works and how the emotions work and how everything works. Because when you understand something, you can remove the resistance around it. And there's two reasons why people never move forward in life, and it's attachment and resistance. When you understand why you are important and why you need to be a priority and why this work is so critical, you start playing for the long game, and you don't feel so overwhelmed, and you don't feel like you can't handle, or you're not strong enough to handle certain things that get brought up. You reclaim your power. And that's really the difference. It's in every single one of you. You are capable of being such a powerful human being. Once you learn to master yourself, you master your emotions, and all of mastery is like, think of yourself as an athlete, and this is a sport, and any athlete is consistently training every single freaking day. There's work behind the work. It's just you learn to enjoy it. You learn to go through it. You learn to, you realize like there's no turning back, because just life is better on this side, and there's always going to be work. It's work being miserable. That's work. It's exhausting. I'd rather just go through a few moments and recharge my energy and be like this is the work worth living for. So it's always going to be work, but what is the work worth living for? What is the work that allows you to feel like you're thriving and you're moving towards something and you're experiencing like life in a better, lighter way? Hopefully this makes sense for you guys and you're getting something out of it. You can drop a comment in the comment box below. Let me know what you're picking up from this. It's pretty deep. So we want to train our brain to become obedient to our heart and align it. And at least you won't feel so lost anymore. You guys are kind of quiet today. Yesterday I had a lot of messages. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about this scarcity mindset. These things just go by so fast. But today is really, hope you have an understanding of belief versus truth. Once I understood this, I was like, wow, this is such a game changer because now I have clarity. When you have clarity, confidence is a byproduct of clarity. So the more clear you are about your life and your feelings and you're more connected to everything and every part of yourself, the faster you're going to move forward and have that momentum in your life. Clarity is a superpower and it comes before confidence. It's like moves confidence. That's one of the biggest things. Like, how do I build solid confidence? How do I build self-worth? A lot of this stuff is here. It's number one, understanding yourself, understanding the emotions. Everybody has the same emotions. People just have different tools of how they process them. And we have amazing, great emotions. We also have negative emotions. It's how quickly we can transition out of them in a healthy way. We love healthy speed. And so today was all about belief versus truth and understanding the difference between that and how to get your mind on your own winning team. Mind, body, energy, all in the same winning team. And think of yourself like as your own sport and how to become your greatest asset versus a liability within yourself. And that, I promise you, you guys, will expand into every other area of your life. Every other area of your life, it's going to expand. So hopefully that makes sense for you. You guys are quiet. You can send me a message if you don't want to say anything out loud. But that was for today. That was your mindset reset, getting a better understanding so that you can get out of your own way, get to know yourself a little bit more, reintroduce yourself to yourself of who you are practicing being that is in alignment to you, because it's not, I think what the biggest hypocrite is when we're not showing up for where we need to be in life. And that comes back to reconnecting to you. And it doesn't matter where you've been up until now, you can build the new. You can build a whole new version of yourself one day at a time. You don't need to rebuild anything. A year ago, I was like, I don't want to rebuild anything. And that's what I'm writing I wrote in my book, is building the new. You don't have to take it, but it is work because it's all programming and aligning to your truth and understanding what truth is and how to recognize it. And that comes back to really reconnecting and working on your heart, because your heart is where your truth resides and the mind is all based on programming. But I love you guys. And thank you for sharing your energy and your time with me on a Saturday at 12. Every day at 12 p.m. Eastern, we are going live to bring you more information and clarity so that you can really feel like you're thriving this holiday season. If there's anything heavy in your heart, you can send me a message that you would like covered, or, just send some love. Share this with friends. Make sure your friends are aware of this stuff if you know people that this would really benefit from. And make good decisions. Remember, today is not an obstacle. If whatever you're facing, it's an opportunity for you to grow, for you to expand. And pain is temporary. Suffering is optional. And the only way out of pain is through it and sitting with yourself and aligning your whole self as one. All right, you guys. Love you all so much. And I will see you guys tomorrow